All right, hey everybody. So Coach Kayla here, and today I'm going to chat with you a little bit about self-talk and this idea of how we can kind of change it. So I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of quick rundown on what self-talk is. Then and that'll include some quick types of self-talk, as well as then the benefits of self-talk, and then a few tips for helping yourself to have a positive mindset when it comes to self-talk, and then how to change it. So self-talk is one of those crazy little things where it's our constant inner dialogue, or this unspoken dialogue that kind of runs through our heads. Honestly, it sounds crazy, but we have it all the time. Self-talk is just constant. We're always talking to ourselves in our heads, and it's a huge part of what makes us whole. It makes us who we are. It impacts how we feel, what we feel like we can achieve, and how we even view and see others. And self-talk can be positive or negative. And actually, there's a couple other pieces that it can be as well. And a lot of times this self-talk is really downgrading, and it's really detrimental to our health, to our mindset, to our motivation, to our goals and dreams. And so we want to learn to change it. And so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how to change it. And so that's what we're going to do today. So today, types of self-talk are negative self-talk, which is basically you being a negative dialogue running through your head. And that negative dialogue doesn't necessarily meaning you're saying that I suck or I can't do this. That's a big piece of it. But it's also something that maybe is just a little bit downgrading, where you may be proud of something, but you are saying that, yes, you accomplished it, but it wasn't fast enough. Or I know just because I took third place on the podium, there were two people that were faster than me, and I'm not actually that fast. Or, yeah, I had a good race, but my swim was super tight. So you're downgrading yourself. And so that's a piece of negative self-talk, is this concept of downgrading who you are and what you've accomplished. And instead of accepting maybe a compliment or accepting the praise, you acknowledge it, but you downgrade it to put yourself down a little bit. So maybe someone comes up and tells you that they're so proud of you and it's so cool how successful your business has been. And instead of saying thank you, yes, I've worked really hard at it, you say thank you, but it's just I'm getting by, or it's just not where it's not where I want it to be, or I'm somebody else's business is better than mine. And so you're downgrading yourself, and that's a negative piece as well. And so then the other two pieces of self-talk are positive self-talk and productive self-talk. And so the differences between the two both are underneath this positive banner. However, positive teaches you to believe in yourself, whereas productive self-talk takes that positivity and it allows you to see the best in yourself and allow those actions to come to light. So for example, positive is, I can do this. I've got this. And productive is, I know that I can do this because I have done it before. And so that's kind of the difference, is it allows you to see the productivity that you have accomplished as yourself. So benefits of learning to improve your self-talk. So it's changing your mindset about you as a person. It takes you making the decision to make a change. And it kind of is one of those where people can give you as many tips as they want, as many helpful ideas, exercises, etc. But it comes down to you making a decision. And here's why you should make the decision to learn to improve your self-talk, so that you're not downgrading yourself and so that you're focusing on positivity and productivity. One, it helps you give a higher level of motivation. You're going to have a higher level of focus, decreased anxiety. You're going to learn to be able to redirect your focus from negative to positive and then positive to productive. And this gives you an increase in energy. It allows you to help you direct your attention to the task and not the outside things. And so this is that concept of helping to stay present and focused on execution versus necessarily outcome. Give you a higher level of belief in yourself and an increased passion for whatever journey it is that you're on. So I'm a huge believer in self-talk. I think that self-talk is one of those things that we need to do more of and we need to focus more on, and learning to acknowledge that the benefits of it is a good start. So, okay, here are my quick 6 tips for positive self-talk. 1, you need to practice it. That practice makes perfect. It is no different than anything else we're doing. We cannot ignore our mindset. And so we practice biking, swimming, running, lifting, etc., but we can't ignore our mindset. And so want to practice it ahead of time. And while there are best practices, the best way to kind of focus should be less on necessarily what is exactly negative and productive, or what is bad versus good, but more on what is productive versus positive. And so what is productive for you? Also remember that individual preferences in your self-talk are okay. Everybody's going to have a different way that they motivate themselves and make themselves feel better, and that's okay. You're allowed to. Self-talk should be focused on what should be done and not what should be avoided. So you don't want to say, I'm not going to eat sugar. You should say, I am going to eat more veggies. And so that's a bad example, but that's that kind of concept. And it doesn't have to be big changes. It can be little small changes where all you're just telling yourself is something positive versus a huge big thing. And lastly, it's very difficult to turn off your self-talk. And so you don't necessarily want to ever just say, I'm not going to have negative self-talk, because that's not going to help you. You have to learn to acknowledge it and recognize good, bad versus productive and positive. So here is my number 1 tip, or not my number 1, but my couple tips to helping to improve your self-talk. The very first step is to recognize your self-talk, to acknowledge it. So you need to always, it's no different than anything else we're doing. We have to acknowledge and accept and recognize what we're saying. So we have to recognize that there is negativity in our life. We can't just ignore it, and we can't just brush it off, because then we're just in denial that we feel this way. You want to acknowledge that it exists, and then that awareness allows you to begin being able to change it. And for me, one of the biggest ways to actually change this self-talk was to visualize something that helped me to acknowledge, recognize, and then stop it. And for me, that was a stop sign. So everybody knows what a stop sign means. A stop sign is red with a big white letters that say stop. And that stop is something that's ingrained in our head, that when we see it, we have to stop. And so whenever I would find myself being very negative or very down or very downgrading about myself, I'd visualize this stop sign, and I'd close my eyes and just stop, and visualize it. And that instantly, my automatic nervous system is going to tell my brain, there's a stop sign. That means I need to stop. And that stops that thought process in the tracks and allows me to then recognize it and say, okay, I am feeling this way, but I'm not going to listen to it. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to move forward from it. And so I talk back to it, and that's my process of talking back to that acknowledgement. I acknowledged it, I talked back to it, I told it to stop, and then I'm going to replace that thought with something positive. And this idea of flipping the narrative, and this idea of replacing that negative with a positive or a productive thought. My best example is, so if you were to say, constantly telling yourself that you are slow. Instead of, that's a negative connotation, that's a downgrading connotation, that's negative self-talk and a negative thought process. So rather than ignore that, acknowledge that you feel that way. So you say, I am slow, stop. Picture the stop sign. Acknowledge that you felt that way and say, okay, yes, maybe I am slow, but I am stronger than a lot of other people out there. Or yes, I am slow, but I'm doing something that a lot of other people would never do. Or yes, I am slow, but I am steady. I can run an entire half marathon without walking. So those are then positive and productive pieces at the end of your statement that allows your brain to switch gears and think, oh, you know what? I am strong because I can do this instead of this. And then lastly, practice, again, is my next tip. Practice makes perfect. Get a piece of paper out. Write these things down. Write down your negative roadblocks that you see. How does that make you feel? And then practice going negative to positive to productive on a piece of paper. Pen and paper is so prevalent in these kind of things, and it can really help you to recognize and see the negativity and then move forward with something else. So that's my little note on self-talk. It's definitely something very important that I'm very passionate about, and I believe that you guys need to kind of work on. So I hope this was helpful for you, and that maybe you can use my little stop sign technique in the future to help you to learn to recognize and acknowledge your own negativity and move forward with positivity and productivity. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll chat with you soon.